Welcome. In this video, we will explore one of the most important topics in logic, proposition and categorical syllogism. We will learn what propositions are, how they are classified, how the square of opposition work, and finally, how syllogism help us test whether arguments are logically valid. Let's begin with the basic building block of logic, the proposition. A proposition is a statement that expresses a complete thought and can be judged as either true or false. It always makes a claim about something. For example, the earth revolves around the sun is a proposition because it can be tested for truth. However, question, command, and exclamation are not proposition because they do not make truth claim. Logic studies reasoning, and reasoning is built from proposition. Every argument contains proposition. Some propositions act as premises, which provide reason, while another proposition acts as the conclusion. Therefore, understanding proposition is the first step towards understanding logical argument. Every categorical proposition has three basic components. The subject, which tells us what we are talking about. The predicate, which tells us something about the subject. The copula, usually word like is or are, which connect the subject and predicate. Together, these three parts form a complete logical statement. Consider the proposition, all birds are animals. Here, birds is the subject because it is the group being discussed. Animal is the predicate because it describes the subject. Are is the copula because it connects the subject with the predicate. Identifying this part makes logical analysis much easier. The quality of a proposition tells us whether it is affirmative or negative. An affirmative proposition states that something belongs to a class. For example, all roses are flowers. A negative proposition denies that membership, such as no roses are animals. Quality simply tells us whether the statement affirms or denies. The quantity of a proposition tells us how many members of the subject are included. A universal proposition talks about every member of a group. A particular proposition talks about only some members. Quantity helps us understand the scope of a statement. Both quantity and quality work together to describe a proposition completely. For example, all students are learners is universal and affirmative. Some students are not athletes is particular and negative. Understanding both features is essential before studying different types of proposition. Proposition can be classified based on their structure. The two major categories are categorical proposition and conditional proposition. We will first study categorical proposition and then move on the conditional one. Categorical proposition. A categorical proposition directly states whether one class belongs to another. It simply connects a subject with a predicate. Examples include all humans are mortals or some birds can fly. These propositions do not depend on condition or alternatives. A universal proposition refers to the every member of a class. It often begins with words like all or no. For example, all squares are rectangles and no fish are mammals. Universal proposition may claim about an entire category. A particular proposition refers to the only some member of a class. It usually begins with the word some. For example, some flowers are red, Since it speaks about only part of a group, it is called a particular proposition. Conditional proposition. Unlike categorical proposition, conditional proposition express relationship between ideas. Instead of simply describing a class, they show condition or choices. The two common types are hypothetical proposition and disjunctive proposition. A hypothetical proposition has an if-then structure. For example, if it's rain, the road become wet. The first part is called the condition and the second part is the result. The truth of the second part depends on the first. A disjunctive proposition presents two or more alternatives using the word or. For example, the meeting is on Monday or Tuesday. It gives choice rather than condition. Disjunctive propositions are commonly used in logical reasoning and decision making. The square of opposition is a traditional logical diagram that shows how different categorical propositions are related. It helps us understand when propositions agree, disagree, or imply one another. The square of opposition uses four standard forms. The letter A denotes the condition in which all subjects are predicate. The letter E denotes the condition in which no subject are predicate. The letter I denotes the condition in which some subject are predicate. The letter O denotes the condition in which some subject are not predicate. Each letter represents a different combination of quality and quantity. Contradictory proposition cannot both be true and cannot both be false. If one is true, the other must be false. In the square, A contradicts O and E contradicts I. This is the strongest logical relationship. Contrary propositions are A and E. They cannot be true, but they can both be false. For example, all birds can fly and no birds can fly. Cannot both be true, but both can be false because some birds fly while others do not. Subcontrary propositions are I and O. They cannot both be false, but they can both be true. For example, some students are athletes and some students are not athletes. Can both be true if different students satisfy each statement. Subalternation connects universal and particular proposition. If a universal proposition is true, the corresponding particular proposition is also true. For example, if all cats are mammals, then some cats are mammals. Truth follows downward from universal to particular. The traditional rules summarize all relationships in the square of opposition. They explain how truth and falsity move between propositions. These rules help us quickly analyze logical statements without testing each one separately. A categorical syllogism is a logical argument made up of three categorical propositions. It contains two premises and one conclusion. The purpose is to determine whether the conclusion logically follows from the premises. Every syllogism contains three terms: the major terms, which appear as the predicate of the conclusion; the minor term, which appear as the subject of the conclusion; the middle term, which connects the two premises but does not appear in the conclusion. Consider this argument. All humans are mortals. Socrates is a human, therefore Socrates is mortal. Here, mortal is the major term, Socrates is the minor term, and human is the middle term. Connect the premises. The figure of a syllogism depends on the proposition of the middle term in the two premises. There are 4 figures and each has a different arrangement. The figure affects how the argument is analyzed. The mood describes the type of proposition used in syllogism. It is written using the letter A, E, I and O. For example, AAA or EIO, different moods have different rules for validity. To be valid, a syllogism must follow certain rules. It must contain exactly 3 terms. The middle term must be distributed at least once. These rules prevent ambiguity and ensure proper logical connection. Additional rules include no term may be distributed in the conclusion unless it was distributed in the premises. 2 negative premises cannot produce a conclusion. Also, if one premises is negative, the conclusion must be negative. To test a categorical argument, first identify the 3 terms, then determine the figures and mood. Finally, apply the rules of valid syllogism. If every rule is satisfied, the argument is logically valid. If you are still watching, I hope you are finding this content useful. Please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel and share your thought in the comment. Your support motivates me to create even more content like this.